So, good evening and welcome to the Dreary Midnight Podcast. My name is Lisa, my pronouns are she, they, and tonight we have a guest. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Celeste, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm very excited to be joining.
So, we know each other from tour guiding stuff.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what kind of tour guiding, it's basically like this, except in person and in costume. I feel like I've told patrons a little bit about it, so head over to Patreon if you want to hear more. But yeah, so today is first entry in a series that will probably be called Hide Your Kids from Your Wife. Because today we are talking about La Llorona. Because you have family who kind of knows about it, right?
Well, my family originates from Mexico.
Okay.
And La Llorona is not, I'm not going to say originally from Mexico because I'm sure you have a lot of different, there's a lot of different versions throughout South America.
It's as far north as American Southwest,
Yeah.
and as far south as sort of Guatemala-ish,
Yeah.
where the Mayans used to be.
But every country thinks that they are the
Yeah.
origin.
What I saw is basically whatever country got fucked over by the conquistadors, there's a La Llorona story there.
Yeah, because that is the basis of...
Yeah, so much.
Yeah.
so much. But she's also an entry into sort of the Woman in White dictionary as well. Go to the overview of that for like a few episodes ago now if you want to hear more about that.
It's a fun episode.
Yeah, it's great. But also, trigger warning, all of the base backstories involve child death. So if that is not something that you're in the headspace for, tune out of this episode. We'll see y'all in the next one. And as always, the show is brought to you by Patreon. If you'd like exclusive bonus content or shoutouts or a postcard club, go to patreon.com/drearymidnight. And if you do not want to contribute money, rate and review wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to Nana Susanna and left my very first review on Apple Podcast. So shout out to Nana Susanna, whoever you are. I appreciate you. But with that, let's get into it. Did you grow up hearing any stories about La Llorona having family from Mexico?
So, I grew up, this is probably a whole different episode because I grew up hearing a lot of spooky stories around Mexico. None of them were particularly about La Llorona, but it's definitely something that everybody knows about as a kid.
Yeah.
Mostly as like a, don't go near the river at night or don't go out at night because La Llorona will get you. It's kind of like a boogeyman story.
Yeah.
Especially geared towards children.
That tracks. So there are two sort of there's a core-based story, and then there's two diversions. There's one that you said where it's like stay away from the river, and then there's the other where she's wandering around looking for young drunk men.
I have heard that too.
Yeah. So as mentioned, she shows up a lot in the lore that in the areas affected by the conquistadors, as far north as the American Southwest, Central America, as far south, there's different iteration because regionalisms, and the core story is that a local woman in wherever you are falls in love with this man who's rich and hot and new in town. And then one thing leads to another, several things leads to several others. They have two kids together. The local woman winds up killing her children, and as a result she is left wandering in the streets weeping uncontrollably. Her spirit has not stopped doing it for centuries. Wearing white, she's weeping, because La Llorona apparently means the weeper. Yeah. The main diversion for the death for child death is, there are two main ones. One is that the out-of-town boyfriend is either a conquistador or a ranchero, and he doesn't want kids. Don't know why he stayed with someone when he had two kids with that person, but, you know.
Maybe she was just hot.
Maybe. The local woman prioritizes the boyfriend over their mutual progeny, and so she kills the children with a sacrificial knife so she can be with the boyfriend. But then shortly after, she sort of comes to, and apparently it was some sort of psychosis type of deal, and then she kills herself too. And so that's the iteration where she's seeking out young, drunk men. And then the other iteration is that the boyfriend leaves town for a long time. And he says, I'll come back and I'll marry you when I get back. And she's like, great. So if he's a conquistador, he's going back to Spain. If he's a ranchero, he's doing ranchero things. I'm not a ranchero. I don't know what that involves. Either way, he's gone for like months and months and months. And he comes back with another woman, which is his new wife. Again, she goes into a blind rage, and she drowns her kids in the river, which is, I think, the iteration that y'all heard.
Yes, that was the iteration that I grew up hearing.
Yes. Yeah. And then she, again, comes to and realizes what she's done. She tries to drown herself as well. She dies, but her soul is stuck in purgatory and crying out for her children and never being able to find them. And so in this iteration, it's you see her by rivers. She wants to pull the children into the water, into their death. And then I looked a little bit farther into it, and there's apparently a connection to Aztec mythology, or Mexica mythology, I think is the proper term.
That.
Yeah.
I'm not part part of the Aztec tribe, but they did have a big impact.
Yeah, I mean, they were sort of the indigenous folks that were sort of, especially around Mexico in the, 16th century. I think they were the most fucked over by the conquistadors. So there is some story about it connection with Mexico City in the 1550s. In the 1521 is when the Mexica officially surrendered to the conquistadors. And then in the 1550s, Mexico City in particular was a Spanish city. And in the 30 years in between the surrender and this situation, there were more Spanish colonists and cities were built out. But they were more designated as a Spanish city or an indigenous city, or more likely a Spanish city and a not Spanish, but we'll try to convert you anyway, even though the Spaniards say your existing cities were already way better type of city.
Spanish just loved converting people.
The Europeans, man, all about the converting people, as evidenced in the witchcraft episode when they were all like, oh my god, this local religion is Satanism, and it's like, no, this local religion is the local religion. Anyway, in the historic version, the local woman is Doña Luisa de Olveros. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Doña is like a title.
Yeah. So the sources I say she's a princess in Mexico City. I don't know if that's necessarily like...
I don't know enough about Mexican history to dispute that.
That's right. Okay, she falls in love with a nobleman named Don Nuno, and they have 2 kids together. And this is over the course of a few years, and they've exchanged gifts, as partners often do. So one of these gifts from Nuno to Luisa is this sacrificial dagger. And he also promises to marry her, but goes back on his word and marries someone else. And Luisa visits Nuno on the wedding night, and she's like, are you sure you want to marry someone else and not me? Nuno's like, I'm sure. She's like, okay then. Since this is an auditory medium, folks did not see we did the dagger motion at the same time.
We did not plan this out. We just both knew where this was going.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the script, and I did the research, so I know, but, also, there's
it's just kind of...
Yeah.
You give a girl a sacrificial dagger, what is she supposed to do with it?
Just child sacrifice, obviously.
I bring out bad influence in you.
Because this is La Llorona, we know where this is going. She goes home, she kills the kids with the sacrificial dagger. And so she was found guilty of sorcery and hanged, and apparently still haunts the area that is now Mexico City, and wearing white and crying out for her children, and also for this asshole. But the other cool thing, the sacrificial dagger narrative is also connected to the goddess Cihuacoatl. And so according to Mexican myth, Cihuacoatl and Quetzalcoatl created humans by mixing their blood, Quetzalcoatl's blood, with ground up bones. And Cihuacoatl is apparently an earth goddess, but also for fertility and childbirth. And so...
That's the connection.
Yeah. Well, it gets...
More connections.
So in imagery for Cihuacoatl, there are 2 depictions that I've seen. One is that she has a skeleton face, and she's carrying a spear and a spear and a shield.
Okay.
And so she's connected with the spirits of those who die in childbirth, and those are called Cihuateteo. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right.
Me neither.
Comment below if you have gentle corrections, or send an email, drearymidnightpodcast@gmail.com.
See, the problem with the indigenous languages in Spanish is that there's really...
no crossover.
Different, like, alphabet and everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting, just sort of the linguistics part of my brain is, like, there's the "-al" suffix is often used for deities, so it's like Quetzalcoatl, Cihuacoatl.
Yeah.
Cihuacoatl, rather. And then their Sihua means snake, and so one of the depictions is she has a snake skirt. But anyway, so the spirits who die in childbirth, Sihuateteo, they are depicted in the same skeletal style, because dying in childbirth is like into dying in battle.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. But the philosophy being that the spirit of the infant is sent down by the gods at the time of childbirth, and you have to, like, literally go to battle with the gods in order to keep the child on earth. If the parent dies in the process, then, well, they fought valiantly against the deities, and they deserve to be buried with honor. And
kind of like a Valhalla type.
Valhalla, yeah, or like Spartans had a similar concept for childbirth as well. And if the parent wins, they get to keep the baby and also their life. Other fun fact that I didn't know where else to put, sometimes if you die in childbirth, sometimes body parts were removed from the dead parent's body because they were believed to carry special powers in battle. Because, like, well, if they brushed with the gods, then something's bound to run off. So the other depiction of Cihuacoatl is that she's wearing white and carrying a cradle on her shoulders.
Oh.
And when she puts the cradle down, there's a sacrificial dagger, or sacrificial knife, shaped arrowhead inside. So it's not actually, like, a child. So this part of her mythos is connected to her own child, Mishcoatl. And he's the god of the hunt and identified with the Milky Way and also with several stars, because she left her son at the crossroads to die of exposure. She still returns to see if he's ever come back, and all she sees there is the sacrificial knife.
Wow.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so it basically, like, all connecting somehow.
All connecting, yeah. And it's this interesting sort of way that localization rubs off onto everything. Like, there's this one myth indigenous to this area, and so there's a rollover when something else happens. And you have some notes.
Well,
you were about to say something.
I mean, no. So I really like this. I had never heard of the sacrificial dagger concept before.
Yeah.
I had heard about the, like, he didn't want children, or... So the version that I grew up hearing was she drowned his children as an act of revenge because he ran off with another woman.
Oh, so he goes to
she's
Spain or
like,
wherever and has the kids with this other person. And then
no, it's her kids.
Okay.
But in that, psychosis, she's thinking, I'm going to take away something he loves, and therefore drowns her children.
Oh.
But immediately regrets it, and,
because, oh my god, I also love these things.
Yes, because I killed my own children, so then she, trigger warning, it's for suicide, but she tries to kill, or she does succeed in killing herself. But when she goes, and this is obviously the Christian element, when she goes to heaven, the God tells her, well, no, because you killed your children, so you have to go find their souls, and so she is forced to wander the earth looking for her lost children and crying because she's trying to find them. So she's calling out to her children. And also crying because of the guilt that she feels for what she did.
And child death.
So if you're a child who grew up with this story and you're near a creek or something and you hear somebody crying, then your immediate first thought is, I don't want to get kidnapped or drowned.
That makes sense.
So you run home.
Yeah.
My dad said that there was actually a creek near his house. And so no matter what they heard, it could have been just any person. It could have been an animal. Yeah. It could have been just the wind. But if they would hear anything that sounded suspicious, they would immediately run home.
Goodbye.
Yeah, like,
don't risk it.
We're not gonna... I do have one element... I wrote it down. Well, because I interviewed both my mom and my dad.
Okay.
And disclaimer, My parents are from a very small town in the state of Michoacan, Mexico. So this is obviously regional stuff.
Yeah. Where is Michoacan in the geography of Mexico?
It's more south. My mom said that she had actually heard that La Llorona not only takes children and drowns them, but a lot of people in Mexico, if they hear her, it's because you didn't take good care of your children.
Oh, damn.
So it could also be
so if you
towards
grow
the
up,
parents.
Yeah. Would it be if you're like, so like you mentioned being there when you were 13, so if it's like, if your mom heard it while you were there when you were 13, would that still count? Or like...
Yeah, I guess it's more like if you don't take good care of your children, she will haunt you. There's a version where she doesn't kill you, she just haunts you as like a punishment. Yeah. For not taking care of your children. And then there's also the version that's more well known where she steals children or takes them away.
Yeah. Because is this my child kind of thing?
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting because I even asked my dad, who's from the same town, and he had not heard that. Huh. So I wonder if there's also like family folklore.
Well, and I wonder as well, if there's a gender element to that, because like I was socialized female, obviously, and so there was certain things that my mom insisted on me knowing that my brother didn't necessarily have to. And so if there's a gender element of whichever the gender is going to be the assumed primary parent, like you're gonna hear more about these kinds of things than the other ones might.
That's fair too.
Just like a curious thought, totally spitballing, did not do any additional research on that.
Sadly, I do not have any first-hand accounts of La Llorona.
Okay.
My dad did mention that anyone who saw her she was basically just like, she looked like a normal woman. Mm-hmm. She had a white gown, messy hair, but wasn't necessarily more scary. I know that there's a movie now. Yeah.
I have not seen the movie, but it's definitely marketed as a horror movie. And so it has that sort of like, I think it has kind of that Ring element where it's like, let's just bum off Samara in this Onryo concept kind of thing for her look.
I've noticed that, not to say that La Llorona is not terrifying. Yeah. But I think when something is given to American audiences, it's definitely more traditionally horrified.
Yeah. Well, it's just sort of taken out of culture, right? Yeah. Like, apparently, early Romans thought the newly converted Christians were incestuous cannibals. Because they call each other brother and sister. And they're eating the body of Christ. Yeah. So it's just like, if you take it out of context and out of its cultural context, then it's like, what on earth are you doing? What the fuck? But if you keep it in a cultural context, it's sort of like, okay, well, there's this philosophy that you're all the family and you partake in these and this and this and that. Yeah. There's a certain tier, certain ritual that an outsider might be like, what on earth? But like, when you observe the development, it's like, that makes sense.
Also, I just looked at my notes again, and I wrote down this little thing that was a little creepy that I thought was kind of cool.
Go for it.
When, in the context of La Llorona, my dad said that there was like, he said it's an arroyo, which he described it as basically like a man-made creek that was near his house. Okay. He said sometimes when it rained, the water would run through the town.
Huh. Like it would get flooded?
Like it would get a little flooded. Yeah. Which, if your town is flooded and then you hear the cries of a woman at night.
Oh no.
Now wouldn't that be terrifying?
Nowhere is safe. Oh my god. Yeah, nowhere is safe. Yeah. You're not going to do any well. All right.
So really, where are you safe?
Nowhere, apparently. Anything else on your notes?
You know what? Not really, other than the fact that she was usually meant as a kind of a way to scare children.
Yeah. So it seems like it's more of a child warning than like what is contextually a fully malevolent spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or also, a drunk man warning.
Yeah.
Basically, maybe just don't hang out at streams.
Don't go near moving water at night, and don't wander the streets drunk alone. General life advice.
Yeah.
Learn to swim and handle your alcohol. And maybe make some friends. I don't know. All right. Well, if we have nothing else, if you would like to get in touch with the show, send an email, drearymidnightpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at drearymidnightpod. If you'd like to support the show, patreon.com/drearymidnight. Would you like anyone to follow you on the internet anyplace?
I guess you could find me anywhere, Celestial Teas.
Okay.
I don't necessarily do spooky things.
Yeah, but you have your art page as well.
I do have art.
Yeah. So I'll put Celeste's Instagram down in the description as well. Stay away from moving water and also being drunk alone. Safe travels home on this dreary midnight. Good night.
Good night.